For me, the key to classroom management success is balance. Now, I can't speak to your classroom situation, and this is a vlog, a reflection vlog, so this is really for me to reflect on my own practice, but something I have been telling myself and something I'm learning about constantly since my first day in the classroom has been balance. And it's balancing really two main things that determine whether or not your students are going to understand expectations and whether or not your students are going to respect you and appreciate you and understand where you're coming from, generally speaking. And for me, those two big things are grace and truth. Now, I have to confess to you, I didn't come up with these ideas on my own. In fact, they're nearly 2,000 years old. They're written by the gospel writer named John in John chapter 1, I believe, verse 14, if I remember correctly. And he said, he characterized Jesus as being full of grace and truth. And that's part of my faith. But regardless of what you believe, I believe these two main focuses can really help you in the classroom. They've helped me anyway. My classroom, I am always aiming to find that balance between grace and truth. So let me kind of make sense, I guess, of how that works for me, how I break down grace and how I break down truth and how I find the balance between those. Because I believe for me, any single day when I walk away from a class feeling unsuccessful in classroom management, I walk away looking at one of these two things as not going quite right. And that's just my personal practice. Everybody has a different philosophy and a different style, and that's okay. For me, grace means believing the best in students. And this is not easy. I think I'm overflowing my coffee. Wow, that's cool. This is not easy. Having a belief that believing the best in kids constantly is not easy. Partially because I think we as educators, as we get tired and worn out and we see repetitive behaviors from students, it's really easy for us to be like, I know that they knew that they weren't supposed to do that and they did it anyways, and they were sinister about it, right? But believing the best does something, and even if sometimes you have to kind of fake it a little bit in terms of knowing that technically they knew what they were supposed to do, but giving them the benefit of the doubt in the way that you handle it with them, what that does is it shows students that you are kind and you are normal, you're human, you know that you make mistakes, you know that they make mistakes, and it just starts it off on a good foot. Every time I get into a discipline conversation and I start with believing the best in them, I'm sure you didn't intend to do it this way, even if I'm pretty sure they did. It does, I got quite a mess going on over here. It does make a difference just from the get-go. Kids feel differently. The second thing I think with grace is you forgive students for the mistakes they've made in the past. You give them a clean slate. Every single day is a fresh start. This is really hard. This might be the hardest because the kids have behaviors that they repeat over the course of time, and if you let them repeat the behavior over the course of time over and over and over and over and over again, which is where truth comes into this, then you're never going to communicate the actual expectations to students because they're going to think, I can just keep doing this and I'll get away with it. So forgiving students can be really difficult, but it's necessary. It's necessary for your own ability to give them grace tomorrow. You have to let go of what happened today. And again, I'll come into that balancing factor. And then the third thing I think is giving kids second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth chances. Giving them many, many chances, okay? With a conversation of truth and honesty, but still giving them that second, third, fourth, fifth chance, because then they know you're never, ever gonna give up on them. And that is super important for classroom management. A kid who believes their teacher will never give up on them, that kid tries. That kid tries hard for that teacher because they believe in the teacher who believes in them. Let's talk about the truth side, because all of this grace stuff is awesome, but if it's not balanced out by truth and honesty, then kids just run all over you and you'll never get anywhere in class. The truth side is first being honest with kids. And that means being honest with their shortcomings as well. When kids make a mistake, they need to know that they made a mistake. It can be really easy to ignore it. It can be really easy, especially if it's like something that's happening in the far end of the room and you're like, they don't know that I know they're doing that and I could not do anything about this. And for me, I know just what I'm constantly learning is the more kids get away with stuff, even if they don't know that you know, the more kids get away with stuff, the more that they're going to continue to reproduce that behavior. This also means being honest with kids about your own shortcomings. This truth can be profoundly helpful in the classroom because students see that you're a real human being. That's important for kids to know you're a real human being that makes mistakes as well. Whether it's practice mistakes with your practice, that you teach them the wrong thing that's not true, correcting that is so important. It can hurt your pride and you might be insecure that kids might think, well, they don't actually know what they're talking about. But kids don't actually care if you're the perfect knowledge bearer anymore. That's not as important as it used to be. And thirdly, I think for me, truth means being consistent with expectations, living honesty in the way that you work through your expectations with students. Maintaining that consistency and honesty with kids of what the expectations are and letting them know when they're missing the mark, that is the balance to that grace. If you are giving them second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh chances, but you never actually have a conversation with them about the behavior, then there's no balance to your classroom management and they're gonna get with anything. If you're all truth and you're all honesty and you're all consistency and you're all battering that ram of expectation and no grace and no forgiveness and no, hey, I've been there and I had a hard time with that too, then they're gonna hate you. Probably anyway, that's my concern. So for my classroom, I try to model the life of Jesus and have full grace and full truth. And I'm not fully gracious and I'm not fully truthful. Sometimes I sway too much on the gracious side. That's kind of my tendency. I'm a people pleaser, so I sway too much on the gracious side, and then I have to kind of backtrack a little bit, and kids don't understand why the expectations have changed, and that's on me for not communicating those well enough. And then I rarely fall on the truth side, but I've worked with a lot of colleagues over the years that are kind of all truth and don't smile till December and all that stuff. And you know what? If that works for you, that's fantastic. I'm not going to tell anybody how to do their job. We are all on our own journey. However, as an educator, and I've worked with a lot of new teachers over the years now, I encourage teachers to smile. I encourage teachers to have personality and to make relationships with students in a way that is friendly, but also follows a strict, consistent expectation or line of expectations. And that's my challenge for myself. I'm really working on being gracious and not grumpy today. And I'm trying to find that balanced line of saying, you did miss the mark, but I'll never give up on you.